I really think what made the difference was just that I didn't run actually as much as I had in the past when I trained for races, but because I was doing all that, my endurance was still good because of Power Zone. But I do a good amount of strength. And then I ride with a lot of different instructors and not just the other Power Zone instructors either. I love Cody. And you know, I've kind of discovered BM lately. I really like her. Ben is great. There's kind of an instructor for every purpose, really. I haven't come across one that I'm like, please God, no.
It's more than just your output, more than a bike. When you hear your shout out, you know it's all right. Put on your magic pants and let's go. We're cruising into the Power Zone. Clip in, set yourself free. Come on and take a ride with me. You know what you need to know and what's it all about. Everything you need, it's on the Clip Out.
Welcome to the Clip Out Podcast, episode 230. This is Crystal O'Keefe.
And this is Tom O'Keefe. Hi.
Hi.
So, people might remember a few weeks ago, I put out an offer for my nerd shirts.
You sure did.
Because I had showed the pictures of all the shirts that I was getting rid of. And I was like, hey, if there are any nerds out there who went from a 2X to an XL, like, if you want some shirts, let me know. And so we actually had somebody reach out, only one person, and they might be regretting their decision to do that.
That was a lot of boxes.
It was a lot of boxes. And so for the people watching on our YouTube channel, here's how many boxes it was. There's 5 moving boxes worth of shirts that and a few hoodies that we boxed up and sent to them. And so I don't know if they were regretting it or not, but it was Jacqueline Ash.
Yeah.
And I guess her husband was like, hey, if nobody else has asked for them, and I thought I'd even divvy them up, but I guess there aren't that any nerds that fit that hyper specific category of going from 2X to XL.
And that want somebody else's clothes.
Yeah. And so they were laundered. It's a smoke-free home. Of all my vices, smoking isn't one of them. It's pretty much just black tar heroin. And and so she didn't tell her husband. He came home to 5 boxes unannounced on their front porch and was like, what the holy hell is happening? And so she was like, ta-da, I've given you a new nerd wardrobe.
It sounded like he was very happy about it.
So hopefully his friends are going to be like, how come you like the monkey so much all of a sudden? I don't understand what's going on there. So, but anyway, we hope you enjoy them. And if there are certain nerd things that don't scratch your nerd itch, then I guess take them to the Goodwill or something, and they will repurpose them accordingly.
Absolutely.
So, just paying it forward.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
So what, pray tell, do you have in store for people this week?
Well, John Mills is back this week, and we're going to talk to him about Dancing with the Stars. We're going to talk to him about a fascinating article that is all about Peloton and lawsuits, and we'll get into it. But it is like nothing you've ever heard before. Like, it's somehow a soap opera got thrown into this thing. And then Dr. Jenn stops by, and she gives some advice about what to do when you can't exercise at all for months on end. And then we have so much news for the instructors. They are back to being everywhere again. So we will have all of the places that they are. MetPro dropped by, Angelo from MetPro, and he has tips for how to balance long runs with weight loss from a nutrition standpoint. And then Peloton is in the news all over the place. So, and of course, we're going to talk artist collaborations.
Awesome. Well, before we get to all that, shameless plugs, don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, iHeart, TuneIn, Stitcher.
You name it.
You name it. The Zune store, which I don't think exists anymore.
I don't think that exists.
But if you can find podcasts there, you can find us. While you're there, be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. And maybe leave us a review. We have a new review.
Yes.
This is from Solence. I don't know. They left out a vowel in how they spell it, so I don't know.
Okay.
But it says, the Clip Out is by far my most listened to podcast. I started listening to it in October of 2020 while impatiently waiting for my Bike Plus to arrive to learn everything there is to know about Peloton. 1 week after discovering the Clip Out, I had to buy a tonal as well. Listening to this podcast helps me stay motivated to use both Peloton and tonal consistently. I'm now going back and listening to all of the Clip Out episodes from the beginning, and it's fun to learn more about Peloton before they went public. Thank you, Tom and Crystal, for this wonderful podcast. And it says at Anna Hawk. So,
well, thank you, Anna. That was a really sweet review.
And not to get all Inception on you, but I'm going to do a shameless plug inside of a shameless plug.
Whoa.
And if you can't get enough of us and you love your tonal, the superset, it's just like this, but all about tonal.
Yeah.
So check that out.
And they had their first live workouts today.
Crystal was very excited.
It was.
So also, don't forget we have a Facebook page, facebook.com/theclipout. While you're there, like the page, join the group, sign up for our newsletter so you can get all the links and whatnot sent directly to your inbox every week. You don't have to go hunting through the page of the group to find it, and you can do that at theclipout.com. And of course, don't forget our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theclipout, where you can watch all of these shows. And maybe it's good if you're at work and you want to listen, but you can't download it to your podcast or to your phone to listen to. You can just go watch it on the YouTubes. So there's all that. Let's dig in, shall we?
We shall.
Run, lift, and live with John Mills.
We told you he would only be gone for a week.
He's back.
Eric Goodman, slow your roll.
He was
I
coming
love that
for you.
video.
I did too.
I love that
It
video.
was awesome. But he was coming for your job.
was,
Did you see
man.
that?
And then the pause between his seconds. I love the whole thing. That was hilarious.
It was hilarious.
We posted that episode
It
at like
actually did
6
kinda
a.m.
make
Central, and he had that video up by like 6:04.
So he was on it.
He was ready to go. He was.
It actually did kind of make my day. I think I was like on the plane when I saw that.
Man, look
was
at you.
good.
Look at you, baller, paying for the Wi-Fi
I
on the
know.
plane. Humble.
I paid for the Wi-Fi.
Hashtag humble brag.
They charge you for that Wi-Fi on the plane too. A little too much. Man.
Yeah, but it's worth it if you can watch videos like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It enables you to fire up your attorneys with that cease and desist
Right?
before things get out of hand. So that's good. That's
right.
for the best. So I guess since you were out last week, that means that you didn't have to sit through Dancing with the Stars that week. But you did this week,
Yeah.
and it was Greasy week on Dancing with the Stars.
It was Grease Week. It was.
Yeah. I liked it. It
You
was
liked
good
it?
stuff. Generally, I watch some of them and I'll make sure I catch Cody.
Right.
This time I watched the whole thing. Me
What?
and Eric.
What?
Yeah.
The whole thing? I only
Yeah,
did that the
it's
week Tom
shocking.
was out of town. That's the only
Don't tell
time.
anybody else that though.
You know you're telling everybody right now.
You
right?
know that I don't know if you know this, but because of this, Echelon is actually doing a Grease 2 week. Would you like a weird piece of Grease trivia?
Oh, of course,
Oh
Tom.
yes.
So
Yes.
when they made Grease 2, the plan was that they were going to make more of them, right? They wanted to make,
Yeah.
they saw it as a franchise until they saw the finished product and America said, no, thank you.
Right.
And so they had already written 2 more scripts.
Oh.
And so the script for Grease 3, this is a true story, sat in a desk drawer for years. And then they finally pulled it out and they retooled it. And that script became High School Musical
Are you serious?
as a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
I forgot about that, but
Yeah.
you have told me that piece of trivia before.
Yeah. So anyway, there's some Grease trivia for everybody. So back to Cody and Dancing with the Stars.
Yes. So it was a big week on Dancing with the Stars. For those of you who only care about Cody, I won't go into detail, but I will just say points were being handed out like candy bar up there. It was Halloween, and they were just like throwing the candy.
Throwing the points out.
It was in point inflation. It was like Brazilian currency.
It was crazy. And then Cody went last. And the points they weren't as free with the points anymore. Like I was like,
They
what
have run
happened?
out. They have run out of points.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess
They ran out of points. Well, every week I go, wow, Cody killed that. How come he didn't get the same number of points? And then everybody will tell me, well, I mean, he was good, but it wasn't like that, John. And I'm like, what? Like, I just don't judge well. This is the first week where I was like, okay, well, I guess I hear what the judges are saying. I guess. I don't know.
I kind of see it too. I mean,
He just seems a little stiff.
he was a little stiff this
Just a little
week.
stiff, I guess.
They seemed a little far apart, and I think that's what
Yeah.
Lynn was talking about with the frame.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah, it just
This is the first time that this is the first time I can go, all right, you guys, I guess you're right. Yeah, I saw it.
you know that
I saw
whenever
it this
people dance well, when it looks effortless, and this one did not
Right.
look quite effortless. It just
It also got me thinking.
okay.
It got me thinking.
About?
Okay, so I think they do the calculation based like on percentage of viewer votes, and then they take percentage of the points you got of overall points from the judges,
Right.
and they put those together, I think, right?
Yes, that is exactly right.
So Cody might not ever go home, right? I mean,
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
he's probably getting like some 30+% of the votes.
And they know
From home.
that, and
Yeah.
that's why they keep putting him at the end of the show. Like, that is not an accident.
I
He has been
concur.
at the end of the show every single
Right.
week.
Him and
Yeah.
JoJo Siwa almost always.
Right.
Well, I think one week she let off.
This
but that's,
week she
right.
was way early on too.
okay. What's she?
But
Right.
but still, it would make sense that you put your strongest. I think she's a really strong dancer. I don't know that she's
Right.
getting the same numbers that Cody is putting
Right.
up, honestly, because
Right.
like it when they start talking at the end about who's going home, like it was a legit shocker this week because it was Mel C and the Olivia Jade was the other one,
Right.
and like.
Right.
They were like, neither of you should be going home. I mean, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
from a dancing standpoint, if you were just going by judges' scores, scores, the bottom two would have been Iman and Cody. That's who would have been
Yeah.
over there, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
So there
Did
you
you
go.
see Mel C's face? This is like a whole soap opera. I was feeling all bad for Mel C. I was like, oh, she is hurt up there. She is hurt.
I know.
I'm too invested in this show.
I know. It's a little heartbreaking. And then Cody's like, yeah, I made it till next week. Out of my way, bitches.
See y'all. Deuces.
Which good for him. I mean, he's not doing anything wrong. You know what I'm saying?
I love
He's
it. I love it. But it also got me wondering, is this like the standard kind of, I guess it is. The show's been on forever. Does this happen other years where there's just like some person that
Yeah.
just has a lot of people
think
flooding
so.
votes and then they keep going through and
I don't know
somebody's
as
all,
much-
the judges are kind
It's
of
a
upset.
common occurrence in reality television shows like this. I know American Idol would run into that, where it was like there was a guy named John Stevens who was like, he sounded like a Michael Bublé kind of thing, but he was
Yeah.
like this kind of like nerdy, lanky kid with bright red hair, and he was the only person who was doing that kind of music, and so he was scooping up all of those votes, and so even though he wasn't maybe as good or as sellable as some of the other people, he kept getting pushed forward week to week, and people were getting really mad about it. And then the madder people got about it, the more his people rallied. And so like there's been things like that
And
before.
that's what the Peloton community is going to do, because we don't stop voting. Okay, like
No.
it doesn't matter. We have loyalty to the core.
a lot
We love our people.
A lot of type A's out there in the world of Peloton.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. So, you don't like our votes? Well, you know what? I was only voting on my phone. Now let me go get every phone in the house and vote from them. And I will go online. I will do those votes too. Like that's all they've done. That's all they've done.
I will add 2 Eins to my family plan.
That's right.
So I can vote even
I only
more.
need to do it for 6 more weeks and then I can cancel that shit. But
Well,
people,
I just like the whole drama of it. I mean, just seeing the judges go, you guys shouldn't be in the bottom. and then seeing the comments afterwards of the people that are Mel C fans.
Oh,
now
yeah.
I just want to get other people to vote so we can keep this drama going.
yeah, well, I think that's where we are because, as Tom just had up on the screen, there were some comments that it should have been Cody that went home. And it wasn't anybody else. It was no Iman. It was Cody. Cody should have been the one to go. So he's out there making some people mad.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
It is good stuff. It's
All
great.
all
This
the
is
Mel
good
C
TV right here.
all the Mel C fans are out buying echelons. They're like, we'll show you.
You know what I also noticed? Like, I feel like Cody has the same impression as I have been having every week. Like, I just see his performances as just like he just did really well. And before he's getting judged, you could see like it feels like he feels that he just killed that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, totally.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when the judges start talking, it feels like it's hitting him a little bit by surprise.
well,
Which is how it's been hitting me.
I will say that, regardless of technique, he gives it his all from an energy standpoint. And and they are at a disadvantage because they have been apart for more weeks than
Right.
anybody else. Like everybody else has had so much more time to rehearse together. And that makes a
Right.
huge difference. And so I that's not really the judge's problem, but
Right.
but it is a thing. And so I
Right.
think that Cody is absolutely giving it his all. I think he's killing it. And like when I say, oh, he's a little stiff, it's a little this, it's a little that, like, let me be clear, he's doing about, I don't know, 1 billion times better than I could ever do.
And learning those dances so quickly.
Right?
That's the most impressive thing to me. I don't know how in the world they learn these things this fast.
And to be on
And
the
then can
the
perform
timing.
them so well that my eye doesn't pick up on some footwork problem. To me, it just looks like they just killed it.
That's why we're not
You know?
judges.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not a dancer.
And because nobody
I guess
knows
those-
who we are.
There's that. There's that.
that too.
Fine, Tom.
So NASDAQ.com, so the website, not the actual trading board,
Sure.
had an interesting article about when will Peloton break even?
Yeah, I mean,
Thoughts?
I thought the original thought was, I believe the original statement from Peloton, a couple of years ago was it was 2023, I think.
Bingo.
And
Yes.
this is suggesting that it's 2024.
Not only are they saying it's 2024, but if I interpret it correctly, John, didn't they also say that that's only if they grow 49%? If they don't hit 49% growth, then it's actually going to be significantly longer. And so I disagree. I think Peloton knows what they're doing here. I feel like they were dead on. They always said 2023. We know 2021 was like a weird occurrence. Nobody expected that to happen. And then once it did, they were like, nope, we're right back to 2023. And they didn't skip a beat. Now, until I hear otherwise at an earnings call, I'm going to go with Peloton.
Right. Yeah. And that's the piece of it that was new to me as well. But I guess I said that wrong, that they weren't going to become profitable until 2024. And I guess this is aligning to that. But yeah, the fact that they would have to grow 49% year over year in order to actually hit this long-standing intent, that was unusual to me. That's not what I would have expected. But I agree. I'm kind of with what Peloton said. I mean, if they say that's where they're going to go, I kind of believe it. So yeah, we'll keep watching.
So when you say 49% year over year, are you saying that they have to grow 49% over and above the pandemic year?
Well, each year would have to grow 49%.
I mean, because that was so unexpected. So
Yeah.
you would almost need, how could you replicate that?
I don't know. They're still managing to do that. I mean, this year the growth has not slowed down. The money has the profit slowed down, but that's because of the treadmill stuff and because of all the money they spent on R&D and all the money that
Right.
they spent on helping people get their treadmills faster, their bikes faster.
Right.
So like when you take all that out of the equation, they would have still been profitable. And so the growth itself is still like crazy good.
Yeah.
And with the treadmills that they have sold, the smaller treadmill that is still out there, I think they're going to be just fine. And we know there's new products coming. So I think these
Right.
people are also not taking that into consideration. So I think 49% is completely doable for Peloton.
I mean, if you look at I guess the question you were asking, Tom, like, if you look at their growth from previous years, I mean, they were well exceeding
Right.
that pace.
Yeah.
So I mean, that would be coming down if it was only 49%. So I guess from that perspective, you'd think it's probably logical. But we know also that there are more competitors now. It's more people in this space now. The people are out and about a little more now. We don't have that kind of a pandemic push. So I think they're probably taking that into consideration. And I think that's where the question is with regards to whether or not they can persist that. But like you said, Chris, we got new products coming, and they're much more global now, and they're changing how they're doing manufacturing. And so, I'm still kind of siding with what Peloton has planned.
So far, they've been pretty right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really have.
Right.
Peloton in court. Who's suing Peloton now?
There's an update to one of the Peloton lawsuits that's different.
Yeah. Now I know this is behind a paywall, so
Yeah.
everybody's just going to have to let me do the recap here. But
Okay.
but this is craziness, y'all. Okay, so let me find the Okay, so just to give a little bit of background, this particular lawsuit that we are talking about is going way back to when Peloton, the Great Purge, when they had all the problems with the lawsuits with the music industry. And they got rid of a ton of classes. And ever since then, there has been a class action lawsuit that has been building. And it has been because they used the term ever growing in their marketing back then. And so they didn't ever grow. They got a little smaller. And it wasn't just, it was ruled not just puffery, which is what
It's a legal term.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I didn't make that up.
Yeah.
And so now we're going through the process of this class action lawsuit. And it got to the point where September, the courts, it was time for them to actually certify the class. That's what happens in these class action lawsuits. And the Peloton came back and said, no, you should not do that because you should not certify this class because the guy who's the lead plaintiff, he's a liar.
Fission.
Yes, Fission. He has made misleading statements. He has lied. He said that he was only a plaintiff in one other lawsuit. He claimed that he was an attorney when he reached out to Peloton, lied about that. When he was asked about those emails in the deposition, he lied and said he didn't say that. And then none of the things he's saying about Peloton are true. There's another plaintiff that is a woman.
Alicia Perlman.
Thank you. And Alicia Perlman, she knows nothing about any of this. She's a plaintiff and she doesn't understand Peloton. She doesn't have the classes. Oh, and get this. She applied for a job at Peloton and was denied that job. And she's still trying to be a plaintiff. So Peloton was like, no, the plaintiffs you have in place are not adequate. They should not be certified. So
It's like a whole soap opera.
I know, right?
I got questions.
Okay.
Number one, I want to know when they say he's the lead plaintiff, he said that he wasn't a plaintiff on any other cases, but then they found that he was. Are they talking about other cases that are related to the same deal against Peloton?
They did not say that.
No, he is apparently going around and participating in multiple class action lawsuits. Like it seems to be
That's his gig.
class action lawsuits against-
that's
okay,
his
got
jam.
it.
So he's involved, or at least someone with his same name.
Right.
Need to be careful because dude likes to sue people. I'm sure he's
Right.
very attractive.
It's alleged.
Yeah.
It's alleged. Just throw alleged in there a couple times and I think we're good.
But he was involved with the lawsuit for Kellogg's for saying that some of their cereals were healthy when they had some sugar in them.
Wow.
And then
so he just does this.
Yeah,
This is what
Colgate.
does.
He sued Colgate Palmolive over the claims of the charcoal toothpaste, and then I also found something where he sued Marriott over a data breach. So
But then tried to lie
just
about it on the
does this.
stand. Like, how
Right.
are you
Then
a
he tried to lie about
plaintiff
it.
and this is your gig? And then you also try to lie about it. You perjure yourself. Like, how is that okay?
Yeah.
And they also said that the Peloton said that the plaintiff's counsel is also inadequate, and they're not keeping their clients informed. That this is an attorney-driven litigation, and the plaintiffs are uninvolved, inadequate, have atypical claims, and where individual issues predominate.
That is right where my second question is. It seemed as though Peloton was very clear about what that secondary plaintiff knew and was informed of, because they talk in there like she doesn't know anything. She's not being informed, and she doesn't even know how this is working. Like, as if they've talked to these people.
Maybe they did during her job interview.
or if they were deposed. I mean,
Yeah, totally. I'm sure it was
Right.
deposition, but the job interview is funnier.
But my guess is that they probably, like, within their deposition, throw some Peloton trivia at them. They're probably like, so when you were doing when you were logging in, did this happen? And she's just like,
I don't even know what that means.
Right. And all of a sudden
Right.
she's stumped about basic things. Like that's
something like that. But it was clear they had some communication. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is wild. And the fact that he was sending letters to Peloton as if he was an attorney,
Right?
and he isn't. This is hilarious. This
It
whole
is.
thing is hilarious.
Wouldn't it be? I mean, talk about hilarity. I would be very amused if the whole thing got thrown out because of this.
I can see that happening because all of this is just crazy. Like,
I mean, you got to figure, at the end of the day, the person that makes the decision about throwing this case out, the judge, is still an attorney. And if there's one thing
Right.
attorneys
That's
all
true.
agree on, you don't get to pretend to be an attorney. Like,
oh, right.
that is frowned upon.
That's a no-no.
And they're not going to like
That's
that.
not good.
But because drama never dies, the end quote comes from the plaintiff, the counsel for the plaintiffs, and they say, we're putting our remarks together to answer this. It's due shortly. So to be continued. There is
I
more in
love
this
that
drama.
statement too.
I know.
I'm gonna translate that.
Okay.
There's my translation.
Okay, do it.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
That's legal speak for humming a.
right. Like, that's how I read that.
Yeah. It's like, how do you in legalese recreate the gif of Homer Simpson slinking back into the bushes?
That's what that was. That is hilarious. I'm expecting this to go away. I may be wrong. but
I
I'm
would like it
expecting
to
this
go away. It's always been ridiculous. That would be the final. That would be pretty poetic justice, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Kellogg's lawsuit ended with if you went to the website and gave them your name and swore that you had bought some Raisin Bran or something, you got $16. Like that's
Well, the lawyers always win
Right.
on these things, not
Exactly.
the plaintiffs.
Precisely.
So.
Well, thank you, John, and welcome back. It's great to have you again.
Yes, it
and,
is.
Until
It's great to be back.
Until next week, where can people find you?
They can find me in my Facebook group or page, Run, Lift, and Live. They can find me on Instagram, Run, Lift, and Live. They can find me on the Tickety Talk,
Yes!
Run, Lift, and Live. Or they can find me at runliftandlive.com.
Loving all those new videos. I love them. They're so fun.
Thank you. Ooh, I got some parody props in today.
Uh-oh.
Trying to figure out how to get this going.
Like the carrot top of Peloton.
Okay, here's just an idea. This is not going to be for a short one, but just an idea, just throwing it out there. Wouldn't it be fun
Yeah.
to do a parody video where you reenact or make up a new Halloween thing between Matty and Jess Sims? I think there's something there.
Wow.
I think there could be a thing.
Yeah, I think I could go really far with that. I tried to once in one parody to play on the Matty Jess thing, but yeah, it's gone further now.
Okay.
So I think you're right. I'm with that idea.
We got like 11
do that.
days.
Yeah, I'm sure you can whip something up.
Up to it.
All right. Bye, John.
Cool. Talk to you later.
See you later.
Getting the psychological edge with Dr. Jenn.
Joining us once again is Dr. Jenn Mann, licensed marriage, family, and child therapist and sports psychology consultant. You may know her from her app called No More Diets. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Dr. Jenn.
Hello.
Hello. Hey there.
Glad to have you back. One of our Clip Out listeners needs some help. This one comes from Pat Darling. She would like to know how to cope when you cannot work out at all for 4 to 6 months. She is recovering from cervical spine surgery. Now she's always worked out in some capacity 5 to 7 days a week. And right now she can only walk on flat surfaces, but now the walking hurts her knee. So it's going to be a very long recovery.
Oh, Pat, I feel for you. Like I really, really do. You know, first of all, I think that you want to check with your doctor to see, can you do a very light stretch class, a 5-minute stretch class? Can you do a 5-minute yoga class, like a floor yoga class, or even, you know, Kristen McGee in particular, and I think a few of the other instructors, but I know Kristen does a chair yoga class. So you don't have to even be able to stand to do it. And that could be a good option for you. You know, I think that there are a few issues. One is kind of the issue of, if you're someone who counts on your workout to handle your anxiety, handle stress, handle depression, any of that kind of stuff, then, you know, that's kind of a bigger issue. If you are looking to get your check mark, that's a different issue. And that can easily be done with a meditation in order to kind of stay connected. And I also think that we become part of this community. And I think it would feel very strange to not be connected in any way whatsoever. Like, I know there are times where before I go to bed, I'll do a meditation, I'll look and I'll be like, oh, there's Susan in Iowa, and there's Jane in Germany. And then, like, I'm not alone. We're all meditating together. And there's a sense of community. And so I really want to encourage Pat to stay connected with the community, whether it's on Facebook or through the Clip Out or Instagram or anywhere like that, to also try to look into the chair yoga, any stretching classes. When your pain dissipates, can you do a light walking class outdoors or on the tread? And just to try to stay connected and do things that are light and easy. And if you can't, do a meditation so that you can stay connected.
You know, we were talking to one of the tonal coaches the other day, Nicolette, and she suggested something that not about this, but I think might be applicable here. She was talking about how she doesn't really like to do yoga, but she feels like she should. So she looks for like yoga that's a little easier. And and so if the suggestion I'm making does not work, please tell me so we're not giving her bad advice. But she says she'll a lot of times she'll do the pre and postnatal stuff because it's a little bit easier.
I think in this case,
is that too,
I think it still might be too intense because they're telling her not to work out at all. I think the most she's going to be able to do is what Dr. Jenn is suggesting, which is like really like minimal stretching, minimal movement. Yeah.
So as usual, ignore me. But that might be good advice for somebody that's in a similar but not identical situation, looking for something a little lesser.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Someone who's like pulled a muscle in their Achilles or something, and, you know, like, or their arm, and they can still do some yoga, but they may not be able to lift heavy or, you know, do the cardio that they're used to.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Good advice, as usual.
Absolutely.
As always.
Well, thank you so much for tackling that question for us. Until next time, where can people find you?
You can find me on all social media at Dr. Jenn Mann, 2 N's on Jen, 2 N's on Mann. I post on my Insta stories all of my workouts, all my Peloton, so you can find me there if you want to know what I'm doing, which classes I'm taking. And also in Style magazine, I have a column that comes out every Wednesday called Hump Day with Dr. Jenn.
Awesome. Thank you.
Instructors in the news.
So Bustle.com has a nice little article, not little, about Hannah Frankson. She wants fitness to feel less serious.
Did you get a chance to read this one?
No.
So, you know, Bustle is all about they kind of like do these little profiles. And so Hannah Frankson, she has this kind of way on the bike where she's playful. You know, she's fun. Like she wants to be taken not seriously. And so, you know, as you can see in the pictures, she's, you know, she loves to dress up for the classes. This one was for festival when they had festival. And she just likes to have fun. And she's always posting really fun content. And she's really close to her mom. She posts things about that. And she's not like your typical fitness influencer where everything is like, let me show you how to put on my makeup. And here's what I'm peddling this week. And, you know, and I'm not bagging on those people either.
Things.
Absolutely. I'm just saying she doesn't do that.
Sure.
Like she operates a little bit differently. And so basically this article is just kind of summing that up.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I said festival week. It was carnival, not festival. Sorry.
And then the Boston NBC affiliate had a nice piece on Emma Lovewell.
They did. And this was talking about how she went from Boston to find success at Peloton. The title is From a Small Island to the Big Apple, and how she became successful at Peloton. But I think that she's always had a bright light, so it's not shocking at all that she's doing so well.
I'm really bad at geography, but is Boston an island?
Boston.
Maybe there's an island next to Boston. I'm just like trying to figure out where the small island
you know
comes
what? This was in a Boston. This was in a Boston news outlet, but I believe isn't she from Martha's Vineyard? I think.
Okay.
And so that is an island.
That's an island.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
I'm glad you clarified that because I'm sure somebody would have added me about it.
Probably.
So
That's what people do.
You know, up there Northeast. When you live in the Midwest, it's all up there in the Northeast.
Totally.
We don't even know.
We're too busy. We're from St. Louis. We're too busy worried about getting mugged every day. So
Not true. But that is what we make all the lists for.
That is true. And we have a free zoo. That's always our response to everything. We're like, St. Louis is the murder capital of the world, but we
have a free zoo.
But the zoo is free.
It is an awesome zoo.
It is an awesome zoo. You wouldn't think when we said it was free, you would think it'd be like 2 ducks and a chihuahua.
But it has all the things.
It's an amazing zoo.
It really is.
It rivals. I think the only one that's considered better is San Diego's, and that's like $100.
I was like, and that's not free.
Yeah. So moving right along, Alex Toussaint was on the Scott Van Patten. I don't know. It's an ESPN thing in sports. I don't know. He's a sports guy, and it's an ESPN podcast, and he was on it.
The name of the podcast is SV Pod. So if you're looking for it.
But see, I think it's a play because his name is like Scott Van Pelton. And so, like, it's a really oddly named podcast. It's where I was struggling because is it SV Pod? Is it SVP Pod? Because that's his initials. Or like, I cannot figure out what they actually call this stupid show.
Maybe we should listen.
Well, it's on Spotify, and I was listening to a playlist, and I didn't want to have to stop my music to listen to the first 10 seconds of the podcast. I would rather complain about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well. I guess when we say things about people adding us, I guess you are one of those people.
I'm not adding them. I'm just saying I don't understand, but I don't want to understand because it's sports and I don't care.
Okay,
but
well,
I'm
it's an
happy for
ESPN.
Alex.
It's an ESPN podcast. We know that much, and we're happy for Alex. Yes, and
Yes.
he talks about his new partnership with Puma as well. So
Puma.
So if you've been curious about that and what Alex's thoughts are, you can definitely check it out on this podcast. And we may not know the name of it, but the link will be included when the newsletter comes out. And to be fair, that podcast dropped today. So we didn't even have that much of a chance. So just saying.
But to also be fair, there's no amount of time that
it would matter.
That it would have mattered that I would be like, I will now listen to this sports podcast. There's no version of events where I would listen to it. So
Got it.
Just to be fair to the be fair.
Okay.
That would be fair.
I'm glad we're all fair.
Yes. Moving right along, Peloton apologizes to veterinarians everywhere.
Well, I'm glad that they apologized. They said they were looking into it. Can we read the apology? Is it included?
I don't know if the apology is actually included, but to back people up in case people aren't familiar with the story.
There may be people that don't know about this.
So there was a veterinarian who was trying to get the medical discount, and they were like, "But you're not a real doctor."
Right.
And she's like, "But I am a doctor." I mean, vets do put doctor in front of their names.
Right, exactly.
You know? And they were like, "No, it's more for people like take blood or give anesthesia." And she's like, "But I
do all those things.
But I do all those things." and so like she just hit a brick wall, and then I guess it was in the OPP, and it got some traction. And
it wasn't just there. It
Yeah.
was tweeted about. It was Instagrammed about. I'm pretty sure it was on TikTok. I mean, it was everywhere. I've been tagged in this debacle. I can't even tell you how many times. And I haven't talked about it. I haven't posted about it because I knew Peloton would figure it out. But it's one of those things that it's like, on the other hand, like at some point, and I am not saying this is the point that we stop.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to be clear, I don't want to piss off any veterinarians. I love veterinarians. They take care of my puppy. But at the same time, like at some point, everyone's getting a discount.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know where that line is. I don't know where it is to be fair, but I'm sure it is difficult to be a company that you're trying to give out discounts for first responders, for example. And then it's like, well, but they just keep adding things.
Totally. And then
know?
all of a sudden, like grocery store workers were considered frontline, and then they were, but it's like, but again, we struggle with this where I work. Like we do a lot of Christian concerts, and then we never offer group sales on those. And then about once a week, I get a call from somebody who's upset because they're like, well, my church group was going to put together but it's a Christian concert. Everybody's church group is like 80% of our sales are to church groups. It's like we would just be lowering the ticket price.
Right.
That's not a discount anymore.
Right.
And normally when I explain, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I guess
I get that.
That makes sense."
and that's a little bit of a unique situation because it's like 80% of the people coming are in that situation. But yeah, like I don't know where the line is.
Yeah, if you start doing doctors and nurses and teachers and military and first responders, I mean, it's just like, like at some point, like who isn't getting one?
Right.
So I get the struggle.
Me, I'm not getting one.
Yes.
I'm not.
But I'm glad that it got fixed for her.
Me too.
So Matty Maggiacomo is dropping hints about what we can expect for Halloween. This has become something of a tradition for him.
It has. He said, "I just remembered that the spooky season is upon us," and he is sitting on a couch next to his giant skeleton that he scared the bejesus out of Just Sims with, which was one of my favorite Peloton moments ever. And if you missed it, you need to take Matty and Just Sims classes, if nothing else, around Halloween, because you never know. You never know what Matty is going to do. And I love it.
And if you can't get enough of Matty in costumes, whether it be Halloween or Christmas or Pride Week, he posted some shots on his Instagram so you can see some of his various adventures.
He cracks me up, and he posted this specifically. So he said, "It's true. Sometimes I like to dress up and run on the tread." And then the next story image was, "What should I dress up as this year for Halloween?" I can't even imagine how he is going to top the last 2 years. I cannot imagine. It's going to be insane.
And then while we're talking about Matty, we should also say that he posted, just thought people would find this interesting. Apparently, they're filming Hocus Pocus 2 near his parents' home.
In fact, it's at the school he went to.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why it's 10 miles from his house. But like they built an entire set, and like he was showing how this is the one that was the one from his school. It says filming Hocus Pocus at my high school alma mater, LaSalle Academy. And they had like this, one of the other pictures he posted was like filming today, quiet on the set, all the stuff you see in Hollywood.
Yeah.
It was very cool. So I thought that was appropriate given that it's the spooky season and it was talking about Matty. That's just neat.
Absolutely.
So that's in Rhode Island, if anybody doesn't know. It's another island up there in the Northeast.
Are we sure it's an island?
Mm-hmm. That one I'm sure about.
Okay. And then speaking of islands, Boston, which we've established is not an island, is where you could find Olivia Amato speaking to the HLTH conference.
Yeah, and that was in Boston, like you said.
Yes.
But I thought
not an island.
I thought this was interesting because she was speaking at like they clearly had a booth for Peloton corporate wellness, and I just thought that was interesting because they're ramping up their corporate wellness, and so they have these like sometimes it's like we don't realize how much the instructors are doing when they're not working out. That's still considered their job.
Yeah.
And that's one of the examples.
And what a great position Peloton is in when you think about it, right? That it's like that they can go to something like this, and they now basically are staffed by celebrities that they can send to like, oh, this is a big wellness conference that we want to try and get more business for the app for, with the different HR departments. We can send an instructor and we'll be a big name and people will want their pictures taken, and you know what I mean? It's a really fascinating position in which they find themselves.
It is.
And then Tunde posted on her Instagram about her love of the new ABC show Queens, starring, among others, Brandy.
But I thought it was interesting because I don't know if you had a chance to watch the whole thing. I didn't post the whole thing because it was long. But she did an entire story about how much she's looking forward to the show. And to me, it comes across as an ad. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Is ABC paying her to talk about the show? Because I think that they are.
I don't know. That could very well be. I mean,
that's a new level.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a show she's excited about. Because it's about a fictional 90s R&B group.
I mean, she said she loved it, but she first sat on her couch and talked about it, and then she posted the next several were like all the different queens that are going to be, performing at this thing. Also, ABC is the same station that Dancing with the Stars is on. So I just think this is a bigger deal than it sounds like at first blush.
Yes, I was having the same thought that if it is an ad, and that's fine. We don't begrudge her that.
That's not a negative thing.
But that if it is an ad, I think it is insight into how much of an impact they think Cody is having on Dancing with the Stars. If they're like, oh, we need our Peloton people. We need other Peloton people to talk about other shows. It helps.
Yes, I agree. Speaking of that, while you're pulling up the next thing, Cody is out there teaching in the temporary studio. They have him at one of the showrooms in California. And so he is teaching from an actual showroom, a store.
Wow. That's cool.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
What a great way to use the space they already have.
And then Adrian Williams was interviewed by Emily Abbate. Is that how you say it?
I think it is. Yeah. And she was actually going to interview him today. And so she has her own podcast, which I believe is called Emily Abbate.
Right.
And so that's a pretty big deal because that means that next week we'll be whenever she gets a chance to post it, we'll be able to share that Adrian Williams is doing another podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The Clip Out.
Joining us once again via the magic of ZoomTube is Angelo, here to answer all of your nutrition questions. Hello.
Hi.
Hey guys, great to be back.
We are glad to have you. We got another loaded question for you, though.
Of course.
This one is from our listener, Chris Gallant. He would like to know, when losing weight to reach a target, let's say 2 pounds per week, how do you balance adding calories for long runs and long rides?
Okay, so there's two components. So for the run component, I want to come back to the 2 pounds a week concept. Doesn't work like that.
Okay.
I'm going to address that. But for the how do I manipulate for runs and long rides, what you do is you're going to leverage your base meal plan. So in MetPro, we call that their base meal plan. And what my athletes, my endurance athletes, my long distance runners, cyclists, triathletes have is their base meal plan. And then they have their intra-training fuel, their intra-training supplement routine, where they know that they're getting so many grams of carbohydrates per hour per run when they're doing their longer runs. This doesn't necessarily apply. You don't need to worry about this for short stuff. I'm defining short as stuff that's an hour, hour and a half or less. This is, those folks that are up in the 2.5, 3 hour plus range. That routine, we don't mess with. Your body needs that if it's going to perform at the time you take it. There is a little wiggle room, and are you doing a lot or little? But basically leave that intact, and it will be organically adjusting. In other words, you're always going to get the right amount because you're having more if you're training more hours, and you're having less if you're training less hours. So it naturally adjusts to your needs.
Okay.
You want to use your base meal plan, ideally your breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, as a rough static base, and manipulate that as your lever for weight loss or weight gain. And that's going to be a little more strategic approach. By the way, I have seen it both ways. You can leverage both, but this is the way that I have found to produce the most consistent, reproducible result with my clients, is to use their base static meal plan outside of their recovery routine to trigger weight gain or weight loss.
Okay. So to answer his question, what you're saying is make sure you're taking the fuel you need for your long runs. Don't change that. What you want to do is change what you eat on a regular basis. That's where you want to. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. And so here's the other thing. You don't lose 2 pounds per week. So that is and it's not that that's too much. It's not that that's too little. It's that the body doesn't do consistent the way most people think. What happens is, when we look at weight loss, we go, okay, a study group of 1,000 people who lost X amount of pounds over the course of this many months, they averaged this amount of weight loss a week. That's blending a bunch of numbers into a median average. It's a good general start that you can go, hey, I'm about on the right page, but I want to give you a snapshot of what real world weight loss for our clients look like. So I'm going to use an example of somebody who has, let's say, 50 pounds to lose. Week 1, after we baseline test and figure out their exact threshold, what triggers weight loss for them, very common to lose 3-4 pounds in the first week. So double that 2 pound mark. Why? Because it's new. It's a contrast between what your body is used to and what you have changed it to. Then the second week, maybe they lose 3 pounds. Then the third week, they're down to 2 pounds. Fourth week, maybe another 2 pounds. Fifth week, they only lose 1 pound. Sixth week, they lose nothing. Everyone plateaus. That's the body doing its job and finding a way to keep you alive. Sixth week, okay, maybe 1 pound. Seventh week, 0 pounds. Okay, your body's acclimated. Now we adjust their diets. So there's contrast there again. And all of a sudden the next week, 7th week, 8th week, they lose 3 pounds. Then they lose 2 pounds. Then they lose 1 pound. And then we have to change something again. So that's where a little bit of the sport in weight loss and science and art in weight loss comes in. So wouldn't it be, well, I want to lose 2 pounds a week. So every time I'm not meeting this threshold, I change something with my diet? Well, yeah, that works if you have plenty to take out, because here's our levers. We can reduce your calories or we can reduce your carbohydrates. Generally, we're not going to mess with your protein, and we want to find about the right base level of your fats. We have a little wiggle room there, but basically the biggest levers are going to be your overall calories and your carbohydrates. So if I have enough room in your diet to remove carbs or calories every third week for 6 months at a time, great. You don't have that much room.
Okay.
You don't have that much room.
That makes perfect sense. And that matches what we see for what we're doing. Yeah, what we're seeing. Okay.
And so some people have, I'll let somebody sit at a point where I will accept slower weight loss as long as I do see progress.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I'll see where somebody's at based on how much metabolic leverage they have. And even with some slight slowing, I'm going to say, okay, time out. We're going to make an adjustment here because I know we can address this. Keep in mind, we have a whole nother tool set over here. We're talking just nutritionally. You can leverage exercise as well.
Right.
So sometimes it's, hey, your weight loss has slowed a little bit. I'm not going to decrease calories or carbs. We're going to add one extra training session.
You got to earn it.
Cardio sessions a week. You got to earn it, right? Exactly. And ultimately, if you're listening, know this: you are going to reach this state. There's going to be a point in time where you have no more exercise to leverage. Not because you're training 8 hours a day, but because you have kids and a job and a mortgage, and there are literally only so many hours in a week. So you have maximally leveraged how much exercise you can do, and there is no more to take out of your diet. And that won't happen to me. That will happen. Unless you have just 3 pounds to lose, that happens to everyone. When you reach that point, it's not the end of the world. It's just your body's acclimated. So how do you fix that? We have to reset your metabolism, go through a performance phase, a revving cycle, where it's all about getting your body used to more food, getting your body used to more, if you can't add volume, intense training, rev that metabolic rate back up, and then you go for cycle 2 or 3 of cutting, and you can start taking things back out with results again.
That makes sense.
And if you would like to try and find those results for yourself, where can they find you?
You can come talk to us at metpro.co/TCO.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Peloton in the news.
PR Week had a nice piece about how Peloton took a stand with racism and doing their small part to combat it. Not that what they're doing is small, but in the grand scheme of things,
they're using their platform
Yes.
for things that they feel very strongly about. And it's interesting. It's most interesting to me that they talk about the series, the Breathe In, Speak Up series that Dr. Chelsea Jackson Roberts did. But if you think about that, that's been over a year since that occurred. The George Floyd murder occurred. And that's whenever this series started. And I just think that it's interesting that it's over a year later and it's still generating press. And I think that speaks to how different and unique Peloton is in how they are approaching this and how they are sustaining the approach. They didn't just do a one-time thing. This is something that they say that they are committed to, and they continue to show how they are committed. And I think that is the most interesting thing to me about this article.
Yeah, and on the heels of that, there's an article in Fortune.com talking about how leaders from Peloton and Chobani and other things.
I think it's Chobani.
Chobani? I don't know. Is that a yogurt?
It is.
Okay. I'm like, it's
of course
either,
you don't know it because it's yogurt.
I was like, it's either yogurt or a designer purse. I don't know. But how they basically earn their purpose and build their brand around things that matter. And I thought it was interesting in the article they talk about what Peloton does and how they try to consciously ask themselves, have they earned the right to talk about this thing, or is it performative, which they get accused of by people who don't want them to do it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But suddenly they care about what's performative. But I just thought it was fascinating, the thought process that goes into what they take up and to what degree.
But I mean, that's what I keep saying about Peloton, that I feel like people just act like it's another company, and it's not just another company. There are so many companies out there that never spend 10 seconds having those thoughts, those conversations, let alone months on end. And so I really wish that more people could grasp that it's not a flash in the pan, because they are thoughtful about things like that.
Yeah. The realdeal.com, which is a New York real estate news website, had an article about why landlords need to think like Peloton.
This amused me.
Did it?
It did. I don't know if you had a chance to read this one.
A little bit, but it was basically just like, don't be a dick.
Yeah, but not just don't be a dick, because it was also like, do more. Like when they talk about Peloton, they talked about the fact that you have a bike and you ride it, but there's all these other things happening. Like, it's an experience. It's not just a bike. It's about, the big moments when they have an artist collaboration or a big celebration for Pride or whatever. It's all the celebrations that we go through together. And so it's not just a bike. It's the lighting, it's the sound, it's all of it. So don't just be a real estate place. Like, don't just be a place that somebody lives. Like, do more. And they talked about the fact that this guy, the CEO Venn guy, his last name is Venn, he goes through and like on his properties, he has like a website for the properties. And like when you go to it, there's a whole bunch of hand-picked community events that you can do. And he like tries to be very, what's the word? Like he's trying to cultivate a community around where he lives and where these people live, not just it's a home. It's where I throw my bags down. And so I thought it was an interesting way to get clicks because they added the word Peloton in it. But also it's a good example. And I think back to what I was just saying about more companies needing to do things like this. He is, and that's great. Yeah, they're basically saying that he creates engagement, and so his properties have less turnover, which I don't always know if all landlords want low turnovers, because like normally when you get new renters, you can charge them more than the annual increase you can give a regular person. It's exhausting finding new renters. There is also that, although I don't know if it's all that difficult in New York. I don't know. Yeah. NPR sat down with Dara Treseder, the chief marketing. She's got a fancier title than that, but she's in charge of making sure you know about things. She's the bigwig. Yes. She's the senior vice president, head of global marketing and communications. That's a lot. I know. Yeah, but it's just a wisdom from the top is what the episode was called, or the show is called. It's just fascinating to see all the people making around. So you never said. So she was on a podcast. Yes. I said NPR. Oh, I didn't hear you say that. I was so focused on finding her title. I didn't hear you. My bad. Yes, she was on an NPR podcast with Guy Raz. Guy Raz? That guy. That guy. He must have a lot of podcasts. Because isn't he the one that did How I Built This? I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Motley Fool has an article. I mean, they do a lot of Peloton articles, but this one was a little bit different. It's just about can Peloton ride the bike to new heights, and just all the tweaks that they've made and how it will affect their fiscal earnings report coming up in the not too distant future. Yeah. Actually, it's November 4th at 5 p.m. Eastern, if anybody wants to know. And we will, of course, be reporting on that. Of course. Of course. Ad Age has an article, the latest data on beauty influencers, Peloton versus iFit. Yeah, I thought this was very interesting because we've talked about this on the show before about how they've both done very well in the middle of the pandemic. John has been on many times talking about that iFit they've done a lot to up their game, and their spending in 2021, May of 2021, was actually really close to Peloton. They spent $418 million at Peloton. iFit spent $379 million. So the spending is very close to Peloton. However, the revenue is not. Yeah. Now, they both doubled, but worldwide revenue for Peloton is at $4 billion and iFit is $1.7 billion. So to me, it's fascinating that the ad spend is very close. I think the difference is all the unearned media, or earned media, I guess is what they call it, that, that Peloton gets, i.e., the news articles and the Twitters and Instagrams, or I guess Instagram primarily, of their instructors. They're just a part of the zeitgeist in a way that iFit is not. It will be interesting to see what happens with their IPO that got put on hold. Yeah. Business Insider has an article with tips on how to get hired at Peloton. And I guess the first thing you got to do is subscribe to Business Insider, because it's behind a paywall and I can't read it. Yeah, so let me give you the rundown. It's interesting. What's interesting about this is they changed the title. So they interviewed, I don't even remember who they interviewed at Peloton, another bigwig, but the interesting thing is that they said that there were going to be 3,000 new jobs at Peloton in the next 18 months. 3,000. Wow. And that was actually what the headline was. Now, I don't know why it changed, but it did. And now it's called How to Get Hired at Peloton. But what they tell you is basically don't be a consumer of Peloton and try to get a job at Peloton. In other words, if your big move is I love Peloton, look elsewhere. That's not enough. Like they're like,
they're not impressed.
Not at all.
Yeah.
First of all, tons of people love Peloton,
Right.
but that's not even the big problem with it. The big problem with it is that you understand Peloton as a consumer, not as an employee of the company. They said that for their trucking company people, like the people who like, move stuff from point A to point B, I'm really terrible with words and I am not thinking of the proper title.
Yeah.
But at any rate, they actually make them watch videos to get an idea of what a typical day at Peloton looks like, because they don't want you thinking that you need to look like an instructor, that you need to know the instructors, that you need to come in there and see things as a consumer. They want you to come in and have a job perspective. So yeah, don't they're like, it's great to hear about who your favorite instructor is. We all have favorite instructors, but
don't fan out.
Nope. That's not the goal.
I get that. I think like I got hired to work for the Blues when I was younger, the St. Louis Blues, the hockey team. And they said after I got hired, one of the things they liked about me is that I didn't care about hockey, that so many people come in wanting to meet the hockey players and like I couldn't pick them out of a lineup.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
It's a long story, but yeah. I literally introduced myself to one of the team's legends, not realizing he was one of the team legends.
Yeah.
And he thought it was really funny. But so, I mean, I totally get it. And the ultimate irony, and if you've ever wanted to see Crystal Sourface, get ready. Here's the ultimate irony. You're gearing it up. I haven't even said anything yet. Look at that.
I can tell it's going to be bad.
You know what this means in the grand scheme of things?
That you could get hired at Peloton.
I have a better chance to get hired at Peloton than you do.
True story. But they also gave other tips like, don't come in and be super focused on what background you have from like what school you went to, etc. Be focused on what skills you have and showing that they work. Like they want provable points.
Yeah.
But I thought it was also interesting that they said it was harder to get into working at Peloton than Harvard. The average open job position has 400 applicants. Wow. 400.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Woo.
A former Peloton marketer has been scooped up by Aura?
It is Aura rings.
Oh, I said it right. And so these are the rings that like...
They're like my Whoop, but you wear them on your finger.
But it's a ring.
Yeah.
Which is clever.
It is clever.
Yeah.
I have my doubts about Aura, but I know a lot of people like them. But at any rate, I think that is absolutely fascinating that they scooped up a Peloton person because I know how much they make, and we just heard about how hard it is to get hired. So fascinating that Aura was able to. Now, I don't know, had they left Peloton before? Or did like they come and headhunt them from Peloton? Because that seems impossible to me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, it seems hard to believe, but you never know.
You never know, indeed.
And some people, they don't like to stay at a place very long. Maybe she did her time and she's like, okay, I'm ready to go try something new.
Yeah. Well, it's Karina Kogan, if you're curious. Anybody out there? Forbes thought it was a big deal because that's why she's in Forbes magazine.
Yes. And then Peloton is apparently getting more aggressive about moving into West Australia.
Yes. I was like struggling with that WA. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
West Australia. Yes. So as we know, we've been talking about for several weeks now that Australia is the next place that Peloton is growing, but now they're moving into West Australia. So this will be interesting to see what kind of growth and traction they get there. But so far, according to this article, it is going very well over in Australia. So that is awesome to hear.
Peloton artist collaborations.
There is yet another new artist series, and in case you didn't just feel the earth shift under you, Beyonce is back.
She is. And okay, so they said when they announced Beyonce last year, it was going to be a multi-year deal. Right?
Like 3, right? And they said it's a 3-year deal?
Yeah, 3-year deal. I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 3. So I'm glad you remembered 3 because that's where I was landing too. The thing about this is it is not just that it's Beyonce, which is great, but it is the amount of classes. So the last couple of times we've had artist collaborations and I've been like, oh man, they're not even doing a run. They're doing like a strength and a walk or whatever.
Right.
Tom, there are 72 hours of content.
I guess she had a whole year to make them.
There's 3 classes or 3 days worth of classes, and there's not that many live classes, but there's classes every day for 3 days that are live, and tons, and I mean tons of on-demand classes. Every category that Peloton has is covered here. So I have to say though that I have been hearing a lot of people be like, Beyonce, whatever, I did the classes. And I have to say, I like Beyonce, but I did expect that whenever I took a class, it was going to be kind of similar to the playlist of last year,
like,
you know?
She doesn't have 72 hours of songs, so now what? Yeah.
The songs were all different.
Yeah.
Everything was different. And I took Robin's live class last night, and it freaking slayed, man. It was so good. It was so good. It was just awesome. I had no idea that Beyonce, in the middle of one of her songs, does a cover of You Ought to Know by Alanis Morissette, for example. And that was played last night.
Yeah.
And it was freaking awesome. But the whole class was. And so, you know, I get that there might be some people like, we've already done this, I'm not into it. I just would say, give it a try anyway. You never know. I was so pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Well, that's awesome. And I know that there's a lot of people that like to oh, but it's like not everything has to be for you. And Beyonce's a big deal, whether you like her or not. It doesn't change the fact that she's a big damn deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Peloton birthdays.
And then finally, we have 2 birthdays coming up this week. On October 24th, you can say happy birthday to Matt Wilpers. This is where you say happy birthday to
Happy birthday, Matt Wilpers.
And then on October 25th, you can say happy birthday to Emma Lovewell.
Happy birthday, Emma Lovewell.
Now you get it.
Checking in with the Peloton community.
So joining us today via the magic of ZoomTube is Katie Johnson. Hey, Katie, how's it going?
Hi, how are y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
So, you know, you've had your Peloton for a long time, right?
I've had it for, let's see, I got it in March of 2018.
Okay.
So, 3.5 years now. I think, I'm kind of in that. I'm not early, but I'm also, didn't get it during COVID. So
I feel like those are the real phases now. There's like OG, and then
there's like the OG, like 2014.
Yeah, and then there's like pre-pandemic.
Yeah,
and then
there's
pandemic,
COVID.
And then post-pandemic.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like I'm like the Gen X of Peloton, and I'm Gen X in life, so it just works.
So you do all your rides like in flannel shirts, and
do you wear a beanie?
And they're all very emo, and I'm angry the whole time.
You clip in with Doc Martens.
Actually, that would be pretty cool.
It would be pretty cool. Although I think if it were possible, Christine D'Ercole would have done it already.
Yeah. True that. Absolutely. So what made you get the Peloton then? Like, how did you first hear about it?
Well, a couple things. I was not an athlete growing up, and Tom, your stories about being on the T-ball team and like,
that's old school.
Like a hot mess. I totally relate to that. That was me. I was on the debate team as a sport when I was in high school. But I did, in my 20s, I started running, and then I liked that because nobody was around me. It wasn't competitive. I did run races and stuff, but I just didn't want to be last. So I was like, that's my goal.
That's my goal. I totally get that goal.
Well, my first 5K I ever did, I did come in third from last. So.
But that's not last.
It's not last. And I have come in at the very end. Yeah. When I did my duathlon in Alabama, I was like legit third from last, and there was like I'm pretty sure a lady in her 60s passed me, and I was a little like, what is wrong with me?
But you finished.
I did.
Right? So
I did finish.
I always tell myself, or like when my kids are I'm like, you know what? You're still ahead of the people at home on the sofa.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember in that moment. So, but anyway, sorry.
No. So I started running when I was in my 20s, and then I just kind of kept running. It was something I could do. And, it didn't require a lot of equipment other than good shoes. And my actually, I moved to England for a couple years. My husband is English. Yeah. So it's a long story, but my husband is English, and I met him, and then we got engaged, and I moved over to the UK for 2 years, and then we came back, but I could just kind of run the whole time, right? It's something you can take with you anywhere.
Right.
Sure.
And so in 2014, I ran, I guess, my second half marathon. And by the end, I had plantar fasciitis so bad, I could barely walk. I mean, I made it through the half, and then I was like, I have to figure something out. So I went to a podiatrist, and he was like, well, you can spin. And I said, And so I called one of my friends who is my neighbor, who was a spin instructor, actually. And I was like, okay, Dina, like, what do I do? And she's like, come to my class. So she taught at this boutique studio. She taught at this boutique studio called Burn Athletic. And it was a great place. They had 3 rooms. They had yoga, including hot yoga. They had spin, and they had boot camp. So it was a really nice, offering. And then for one price, you could kind of access all of these things. And so I started going to Burn, and I got really into all the different things. I'd never done boot camp before. I'd never done hot yoga before. And I got into the spin. I really enjoyed all that stuff. And then eventually I was able to add the running back in, right? So I did that for a few years and just loved it. And then it was actually in the summer of 2018. So right after I got my Peloton, Burn closed. And so we were all very sad. There were kind of a group of regulars who we were just kind of, despondent about it. But that's when I really threw myself into Peloton. But I will say, when we kind of heard that there was a chance that Burn could close, that's when I was like, I started hearing about the Peloton. And the first thing I heard was I got a direct mailer. I got a postcard in the mailbox, and I'm in marketing. So by nature, I'm very suspicious of direct mail pieces.
I totally get
that. And so I was like, but I just was like mesmerized by this idea. And so I went online, and I saw the bike, and I saw it was $2,000, and I chatted with the rep, and I was like, so it's just the bike and it's $2,000. Is that the deal? And she was like, that's the deal. And I was like, I'll talk to you later. But then they had a pop-up store in the mall here. And so my husband saw it, and he came home, and he was like, oh, I've seen this thing called Peloton. And
it's a good thing your husband is actually British, or that would be insulting.
No, right? No, he really talks like that. Actually, if he were here, he'd be like, I don't talk like that. He thinks my British accent's terrible, which is pretty much it.
When he's recounting your conversations, does he do an
American accent?
Oh, he does, y'all. Okay, so I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I'm from Nashville. And Richard's Tennessee accent is just the worst Southern accent I have ever heard. And
I've noticed it, like, whenever someone, like, not whenever, but a lot of times when someone who's English, if they're not good at accents, if they try to do an American accent, they default to John Wayne.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Does he do John Wayne? No, he
doesn't do John Wayne. He tries to do this. I can't even, like, it's not great, but his regular accent, that's the thumbs up,
Chicks dig accents, man.
Well, what's funny is that when I always tell him, like, it's great to have a husband who has this great accent. It's wonderful until they say something you don't want to hear. Like when he says, actually, you're wrong. It sounds like 10 times worse.
Oh, yeah, because then it comes across as like super arrogant.
Yeah, and you're like, actually, you're just not very nice.
And you're like, well, actually, Benny Hill's not funny. Get him right where he lives, man.
No, it's Blackadder. Blackadder's not funny.
Well, I don't know about that part.
But. I can't believe we found a pop culture reference that you don't want to know.
No, I'm saying, like, Blackadder's funny.
Oh, you think Blackadder's
You guys are just going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, we totally interrupted you.
Did.
So sorry.
No. So he saw it at the mall. So we're kind of going back and forth. And then about a month after this kind of going back and forth conversation, my boss, who named Lori, pulled me into her office and she told me, she's like, Katie, I've got good news. You got a bonus this year. So I'm so excited. And she's like, she looked at me and she said, now, Katie, and I'm, married with 2 kids and mom and all that kind of stuff. She said, Katie, you cannot spend this money on your children, on anything practical. You have to treat this money like it fell from the sky.
I like your boss.
I looked at her and I went, I'm getting a Peloton. And so now, every time I have a milestone, she's the first one to be, to comment and stuff like that.
Aww. So now, does she have a Peloton or ride Peloton?
Does not have a Peloton, but a lot of I have been able to, like you, Crystal, I've gotten a lot of referral codes over the years. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. So now does your husband ride the Peloton?
It's interesting. He did a few times, and then he plays tennis and golf and stuff. And but recently he's gotten into he's done the total strength program.
Yeah,
multiple. He's done it he does it once and then he does it again. So he's done that a few times. He's also started they've got an intro to cycling kind of program that he's started and so he did some beginner rides, and then the other day he did a 15-minute Robin ride, and he was like, that was unpleasant. So he's getting more and more into it. But the only thing about sharing the bike is that then they mess with your seat height. I mean, there's a whole thing there, right?
And you have to add in 10 minutes to put it back.
Right?
Yeah,
it's a lot easier with the Bike Plus, though. It is a lot.
Oh, that's
easier
good. Now, I have not personally had that problem.
You're welcome.
I will say
see,
that's
Tom's just doing it for you, right?
It's just I'm a caring husband.
Yeah.
I'll let that slide since you're tonaling these days, Tom. But otherwise, no. Okay, so now what about anybody else in your family? Does anybody else use Peloton?
My kids, my kids will use it occasionally, in the, in the house and stuff. But actually the big people I've gotten several family members, to get bikes. Although one family member had it before me, and, my cousin, I have a cousin, Jeannie, who is, she and I are 4 days apart. She's 4 days younger than me.
Oh, wow.
And so we both grew up in Nashville, and, obviously if you're 4 days apart, they kind of treat you like you're almost twins, so we were together a lot when we were younger. But then, we went to different high schools, and we went to college in different cities, and she lives in Chicago. And then I found out that one day she just kind of randomly posted on Facebook about her bike ride. And I was like, you got a Peloton. And so we started riding together. And then I had just kind of started into Power Zone at that time. And then I sucked her into Power Zone, and now we're on the same Power Zone team. And we went to homecoming together in 2019. And actually I met you all there briefly.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So it's been wonderful to ride the bike with Jeannie. And then Jeannie and I convinced our uncle to get one. We convinced my mother to get one. I've convinced my brother and sister-in-law in the UK to get one.
Wow.
And that referral code works over the ocean, so that's a good thing.
Oh, awesome.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And then recently my sister got one. So I'm doing my best to get everybody in my family.
I feel like there needs to be a family reunion, and then you just everybody brings their bikes and lines them up, and then you start you test out the calibration. You know?
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay, but you had mentioned when we were talking before this that things with Peloton and COVID got a little crazy. So tell us about that.
No. So during COVID, it was just a great way. I mean, obviously, my husband and my kids, we live in Raleigh, but we don't have any other family here. Okay. And then my cousins in Chicago, my mom, or actually all my parents, all my family's in Nashville. And then we've got, my brother and sister-in-law in the UK. And it's just been wonderful to have something we can do together.
Yeah.
Sure.
To meet my cousin on the bike, to meet my mom on the bike,
to meet or beat?
Meet.
Oh,
No.
That makes more sense.
No, meet.
Meat.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And how awesome is it? Like, there have been a few times where I've gotten on the bike and like my brother and sister-in-law are doing the same, to ride live with them. Like, and they're 5 hours ahead. Like, that's super cool. So, but it's, my mom actually does the Power Zone challenges just like Jeannie and I do.
Aww.
And she's not on our team. She's like, honey, I just don't want to embarrass you. But I mean, I don't really know how she could, because she's well, you know how these challenges work, right? We're on a 3-ride team, but really that means 4 rides.
Right.
And
then there's like 8 extra things you also have to do.
They've changed it. So now it's just the 4.
Okay.
If it's a ride, it's just 4 rides.
Okay.
They have adjusted it. But my mom gets max points every week.
And
How would she embarrass
that
you?
That would embarrass you. Why? Is she saying that you're not good enough? Like,
wow, is this like reverse psychology? Is she saying you'd embarrass her?
I don't think so.
It's like,
anyway.
my skill level would embarrass you.
Yeah. But she loves it, and it's been she's the only person I've ever used video chat with is my mother, because that's the only person I would want to see, or I would not want, but at least allowed to see me. And I'm like, well, I call her and I'm like, how you doing? I'm fine. How are you? And then we kind of, sign off. But, on those 90-minute endurance rides, that's been great, because I didn't really get to see her for 18 months.
Wow.
So to be able, because she is, she has some underlying health conditions, and until the vaccine, I wasn't able to see her. I was, I would go to Nashville and I was able to see my dad and stepmom, because their health is not as compromised as my mom's, but my mom, I couldn't see her. So it was great. It's been great to have that outlet and be able to, ride with her.
I bet. I can't even imagine how hard that would be. I mean, I went a pretty long time without seeing my family, but we were able to do a couple of very quick visits, just Tom and I, a couple of times, but we only live a couple hours away. I'm not really sure how far Nashville is from...
It's like 525 miles. Ooh, so it's neighboring states, but it's still pretty far.
Okay.
It's just a 1-hour flight, but during COVID, nobody really wanted to do that. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's been a great way to kind of, to, I guess, still have activities you can do with your family and, things like that. And, I've just really enjoyed it.
That's awesome.
And it's good that she's got something.
Yeah.
Well, she and my stepdad both, they do a lot of like mountain biking and stuff anyway. That's how I knew they would like the bike.
Wow.
And my mom's like, her fitness is like improved. So when she does her outdoor rides, she actually does better now because she's doing all the Power Zone stuff. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, that's great.
I know. Yeah. And I got us these matching mugs that say, sorry, I can't. I have plans with Matt Wilpers.
So now is that, do you ride like exclusively with Matt? Because
no,
there's
I
all
don't.
the instructors now that do Power Zone.
I do. And I don't do exclusive Power Zone either.
Okay.
And I still run, probably not as much as I did, but I have found that, with the Power Zone, I've been able to, like, right before COVID, I ran another half marathon and I had a PR and I was 8th in my age group.
Wow.
And I didn't try. Well, remember I was 3rd from the last, right?
Yeah.
So, this was not something I really saw in the cards for me, But I really think what made the difference was just that I didn't run actually as much as I had in the past when I trained for races, but because I was doing all that, my endurance was still good because of Power Zone. But I do I do a good amount of strength. And then I ride with a lot of different instructors and not just the other Power Zone instructors either. I love Cody. And, you know, I've kind of discovered Leanne lately. I really like her. Ben is great. There's kind of an instructor for every purpose, really. I haven't come across one that I'm like, please God, no. I will say that for a long time, I just kind of thought Jess King I was like, other people love her, but she's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And do you remember that Jess King experience ride she did with Dennis where they wore the matching glitter chaps?
Oh, yes.
And I was like, I don't know. I think that's a bit much. But lately, I did some of her Pilates rides and I've done some walks with her. And, you know, I find her to be really engaging and interesting. So when I'm doing a Power Zone challenge, a lot of times the warm-ups that I do are like the more, I don't want to say the non-Power Zone instructors. So you get a little bit of everything, but
that's a good way to mix it
in.
Yeah, it makes a difference. And also if you're doing a lot of strength classes, you feel like a lot of those tread instructors, like I've only done a handful of tread classes when I was visiting my in-laws and they had a treadmill. But I feel like I know Matty and Jess and stuff is just as much as some of the others because I've done so many strength classes with them.
So do you have a preferred instructor? Put you on the spot.
Well, I kind of default to Matt, but at the same time, I really don't. I really kind of like them all for different things. Now, some I certainly take more classes with than others.
Yeah.
I really like Matt and Ben and Leanne and Cody, and Dennis, and Christine. So, but I keep going and right?
And yeah.
So I think the answer is no.
It sounds it.
It does.
Yes.
So what about like from a social media perspective? Do you hang out in one of their groups more often than others?
Yeah, I'm in the Menaces and then I'm in the Power Zone Pack. And then my Power Zone team, some, are more active than others, but mine has been around, like I think it's been around since I think late 2018. And I started on that team in January of 2019. And I actually was a team lead for about a year. I've taken last challenge and I'm going to take this challenge off just because I got a lot going on. But it's just, that's kind of my group of people that I talk to the most about Peloton. I mean, other than strangers who ask or family members who didn't ask. And, my kids are like, please not the Power Zone. But that has been their ride or die team 3-9. They've just, it's our name is always some kind of variation on the ride or die theme. Like right now it's a safari theme. So we're pride or die. We've been Jedi or die. We've been, we've had a lot of variations on the theme, but that's where I kind of hang out the most.
That's nice that you guys have had that long of a run that you've ridden together. It used to be that way for the 6 a.m. crew, because the 6 a.m. crew used to always ride together. And then, COVID changed kind of all that. And so it's not really a thing anymore.
Well, I was looking because I like to ride at 6 a.m.
Yeah, me too.
I'm an early morning person for sure. And I was like, this week I noticed like there's no live 6 a.m. rides at all. Like tomorrow, I think I'm going to do there's a lot of encores and stuff. And I don't know if that's
some of that's people being out. Yeah. Some of that's people being on vacation and things like that. But
last gasp of summer.
Yeah, exactly. But some of it is just, it's never really great in the morning. And then the tread classes don't start until 7. So it's like you can't do a live run or a ride. So it stinks.
Yeah, that is hard. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. And it always seems to come back around. I try not to just get too hung up on it or complain about it.
Exactly.
Because it'll always come back around.
I just accepted, okay, well, this is how I'll just catch up on all the stuff I didn't get to do. So this is
and I'm able, during COVID, I've been able to work from home. And so,
that's wonderful.
So sometimes, I'll sneak in, like when Robin did her did the Aretha Franklin ride. I snuck that in, over lunch because it was Aretha Franklin. So
right. Priorities. Hello.
So what is your leaderboard name?
It's KT Hammer, which is my actual name. So Hammer is my maiden name.
Gotcha.
So I was so excited when I put in my, when they came and they gave me the bike and they were like, I had to do a leaderboard name and I always want to be KT Hammer, but it's always taken on every platform, but it wasn't taken on Peloton. So I was very pleased about that. And somebody told me I got my bike at like 12:45 and I was on a live ride. My first ride was a live ride with Allie Love at like 1:30, right?
That is exactly how I was.
Yeah. Well, they told me at the showroom at the time, because it wasn't, like it is now. They said their advice to me was take your first ride live because you'll probably get a shout out.
Yep.
Now, you almost never hear that before, but then you always did. But when I did it, I put my name in as all lowercase. And so Allie did give me a shout out, but she shouted out Kathammer.
That's a good D&D name, though.
Yeah.
If you ever have to play a character in Dungeons and Dragons, you can Kathammer.
That's great. Kathammer?
Yeah.
Kathammer.
Yeah. So then I changed the capitalization, so it's KT Hammer.
Good thinking.
I've gotten many high fives from KT Hammer, and I love it.
You really like to do that.
So aside from capitalization, do you have advice for people who are just now getting their Pelotons?
Yeah, I think, I have some of my advice is the same advice that everybody gets. You should really ride with every instructor. But there's one piece of advice that I got from a past guest on your show that I haven't heard very often that has really rung true for me, which is you should revisit instructors that you think you don't like.
Yeah.
So case in point is Jess King, because I kind of thought like, I don't know about all that. But then I kind of got, I took some of her Pilates classes and I was like, oh, okay. And then, next thing you know, I'm following her on Instagram and watching her make all these recipes and, all this stuff.
I think that's a good point, not just to revisit them, but revisit them in a different way.
Mood.
Like, not in your mood, but also a different class type. Like, it seems that you connected with the Pilates class, but maybe that gave you a way to open the door to connect with her in other class types, where if you just kept taking her on the bike, if that's where you didn't connect with her, then that might have continued. But because you changed the venue, it kind of made things different. Because I feel like Robin is a completely different personality on the tread than she is on the bike.
I don't really know about how she is on the tread, but I feel like she's very different in her strength classes. Sometimes on her bike classes, I just kind of, Robin is wonderful and her classes are great, but sometimes you kind of feel like she's yelling at you a lot. That's how I feel. But with the strength, it's almost like her tone is a lot more encouraging. And I think that's because it seems to me that she's very cognizant that a lot of people follow her on the bike. And the only reason they're trying strength classes is because Robin told them to. And so she wants, in a good way. Right.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to kind of like, I guess, they've trusted her enough to try something new, and so she takes that very seriously, and you can see that in the way she coaches the classes. And personally, I've found that to be very. I like her a lot more in her strength than on the bike. Although that Aretha class, she coached that perfectly. I thought it was amazing. She couldn't have done a better job with that. It was great.
Well, I totally agree with you. And I haven't taken a lot of Robin's strength classes, but I definitely feel that she's different on the tread. So I think your advice is spot on, that like you should try different instructors. Yes, go back to them, but also try them in a different venue because you might have a different reaction in a different way. Yeah. So that's good advice. Really good advice.
Totally.
And I'm glad she thinks like that, because like that benefited me when we were dating.
Me, like that I was dating you.
Yeah, right. It benefited me that you thought like that. You're like, well, maybe I'll try when I'm in a different mood.
Well, that's true, because we actually met on social media twice because
We've never told this story. Have we?
I want to hear this. How did y'all meet?
So we met on Plenty of Fish.
Well, we met on
we
Match.
met on Match.com.
But
Yeah.
she stopped talking to me.
No. He stopped talking to me.
You stopped replying to me.
He stopped emailing me.
And so I was just like, well, I guess she was not interested in it.
And
She-
so then he never answered. So I just was like, okay, what else?
No,
And
you stopped answering me.
No. You were the last one to respond. I can go back and find the email, Tom.
Oh, you still have your Match account?
Oh my God.
Because I don't. So I just have to take your word for it.
And so then, like 6 months later, I see him again and I see his little face and I was like, oh yeah, that guy, I wonder what happened to him. And then he talked to me again.
Then I messaged her, and then she wasn't responding timely because she was very popular. She had lots of other boys to talk to, and so.
You gotta, that's the good ones always do, Tom.
I just took it as she wasn't interested.
Well, I was interested, but you were emailing me and everybody else was texting me.
Well, I don't know how that works. I didn't know that was. It's all coming to your phone.
You know what texting was?
What do you care?
It wasn't that long ago.
And I was trying to be polite and not be like the creepy guy that was like, "Hey, give me your phone number."
And I was like, "Honey, you were so non-creepy." I was like, "I don't even know what to do with this guy because everybody else is like sending stuff I didn't ask for." You know what I'm saying?
Oh man. I met my husband in 2003, and so that some of that was out there, but I missed Tinder and I missed all that stuff, and I am very glad. Although when I met my husband and we met I was living in Raleigh and he was living in the UK, and we met. We both worked for the same company, and we went to a work conference in Innsbruck, Austria, which is where we met.
Oh wow!
And so I was talking to somebody who was talking to him, and he turned to me and he goes, "Who the hell are you?" I said, "I'm Katie Hammer." And we've been married 16 years. So,
congrats.
How about that?
That's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah,
you should have had that engraved on his wedding band.
Who the hell are you?
Who the hell are you?
I have a friend of mine, a friend of a friend. Her husband's wedding band says, "Put it back on."
Oh dear. Oh, well. Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Well, if you have to tell them to put it back on.
I know, right?
It's probably.
But I think it's all in fun. It
Yes.
sounds like it's in fun.
But the thing is, I wonder, is it more about just losing it, because he's forgetful?
Depends on the day.
I don't know. I don't want to, think about other people's relationships. That's, because you never really know what happens in
don't?
another couple's
No.
relationship. It's very,
don't.
you'll never know.
No. Nor should you.
No.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. Before we let you go, where can people find you on social media if you would like to be found?
Yeah, so I on Facebook and Instagram, I'm Katie Hammer Johnson, and on Twitter, I just talk about work stuff. So, and I don't do that much on Instagram, but on Facebook, I'm Katie Hammer Johnson.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
all so much for having me.
The Clip Out.
So I guess that brings this episode to a close. What, pray tell, do you have in store for people next week?
We are going to talk to Andy Medina. I am super excited about it.
Awesome. Well, until then, where can people find you?
People can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Crystal D. O'Keefe. They can find me on where am I?
The bike and the tread?
The bike and the
Instagram?
tram. The tram.
The tram?
Oh, my word.
I think maybe that's what the British call a tread. They have a different word for everything.
Instagram, Twitter, the bike, the tread, at Clip Out Crystal.
And you can find me on the dolly. I don't know. You can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online, facebook.com/The Clip Out. While you're there, like the page, join the group. And of course, don't forget our YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Clip Out. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep pedaling.
And running.